Welcome to Forbidden Texts. What you are about to see may shock you. It may surprise you, but will definitely challenge everything you thought you knew. Stick around until the end to discover the forbidden knowledge that they don't want you to have.
They say ignorance is bliss. But what if knowledge, real, raw, unfiltered truth, sets you apart so much that the world turns its back on you? Imagine waking up one day and realizing everything you were taught, everything you believed in, was built on illusions. That the rules of society weren't designed to enlighten, but to control. That the very people closest to you, your friends, your family, can no longer understand you. Welcome to Forbidden Texts, where we explore ancient knowledge and forgotten wisdom. You've felt it, haven't you? That sense that something is off. That the world is running on autopilot while you've somehow broken free. At first, it's exhilarating, like discovering a hidden layer of reality that no one else can see. But then it starts. The alienation. The judgment. The feeling that no matter how hard you try to explain what's happening, no one gets it. Worse, they look at you like you're the crazy one. A pattern. One that repeats throughout history. The ones who step outside the matrix are the ones who get labeled, outcasted, or even silenced. But why? Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll not only understand the real reason the awakened are misunderstood, you'll see exactly why it's happening to you, and how to turn this so-called curse into your greatest power. What exactly is a spiritual awakening? Society wants you to believe it's just some new age buzzword, a fantasy cooked up by people trying to escape reality. But the truth, it's the exact opposite. It's seeing reality as it is, not the filtered, sugar-coated version we've been programmed to accept. A spiritual awakening isn't soft. It isn't comfortable. It's a demolition of everything you thought was real. The first time it happens, it feels like your mind has been set on fire. The job you once valued feels meaningless. The relationships you invested years into suddenly seem shallow. The goals society handed you, climb the corporate ladder, buy a house, settle down, they start looking like carefully constructed traps, designed to keep you asleep. And that's when the real struggle begins. Disbelief. Even anger. Why? Because people don't want to wake up. They don't want to question the structures they've built their lives around. And when you challenge that, you're not just misunderstood, you become a threat, a disruption. You see, awakening isn't just about feeling more connected to the universe or seeing through the illusions of ego. It's about transformation. And transformation is dangerous to a world built on stability and control. It's the reason history is filled with prophets, mystics, and visionaries who were shunned, exiled, or worse. This isn't just some personal journey. This is a war between perception and programming, between seeing and obeying. And those who dare to wake up, they rarely make it through unscathed. But there's something they don't tell you, the deeper truth that changes everything. And we're getting to that, some even with hostility. At first, you might think it's just bad luck, a rough patch in relationships. But then the pattern emerges. It's not that you've changed, it's that you've stopped playing along. And nothing makes people more uncomfortable than someone who refuses to conform. Society isn't built for truth seekers. It's built for followers. It rewards those who fit in, not those who question. And when you step outside that, when you start challenging the narratives that hold this system together, you become a problem. Not just to the people around you, but to the very structure of society itself. You might notice the subtle ways people try to pull you back. The way they tell you, you've changed, but not in a good way. The way they dismiss your insights, as if deeper understanding is something to be ashamed of. Or worse, they try to pathologize it, make it seem like something is wrong with you for seeing beyond the veil. This isn't an accident. It's a defense mechanism. Because if they admit you might be onto something, it forces them to question their own reality. It's the silent battle no one talks about. The point where so many awakened individuals start to wonder, was it worth it? And yet, those who push through, those who don't fold under the pressure, those are the ones who tap into something even deeper. A truth that not only explains why this happens, but also reveals what comes next. We're getting closer to it. The more you awaken, the more you realize society doesn't just misunderstand you, it resists you. Hard. And it's not because you're wrong. It's because you're unpredictable. Think about it. Systems, whether political, religious, or cultural, aren't built for individuals who think for themselves. They thrive on predictability, on compliance. When someone steps outside the norm, when they stop obeying without question, it shakes the foundation of the entire structure. It forces others to ask questions they were never meant to ask. Every era, every civilization has its heretics, its rebels, its truth speakers. And every time, they are silenced, not because they were wrong, but because they saw too much. They saw that reality is malleable. That authority is often just an illusion of control. That power isn't in governments or institutions. It's in awareness. And the most dangerous thing to any system is someone who realizes they don't need it. It's why awakened individuals are pushed to the fringes. It's why history books conveniently erase those who didn't fit the script. It's why when you speak, people don't just ignore you, they react. Emotionally. Almost aggressively. Because deep down, they feel it too. The cracks in the illusion. The inconsistencies in what they've been told. But facing that truth, it's terrifying. And so, instead of listening, they fight. Not with reason, but with ridicule. Not with logic, but with fear. Because if you're right, if even a fraction of what you say holds weight, then everything they've built their life around is a lie. A reason why those who see deeper truths are often the ones who suffer most. And it's not what you think. We're almost there. The greatest trick society ever pulled was convincing people that the ones who see through it are the ones who are broken. That the spiritually awakened are just going through something. That their detachment from the material world, their rejection of shallow pursuits, their refusal to engage in mindless distractions, these are symptoms of a problem rather than evidence of clarity. Think about that. You wake up from a dream, and instead of people asking what you saw, they tell you to go back to sleep. It's a clever defense mechanism. Because if society can convince you that you're the problem, then it never has to change. It never has to question itself. It can continue running on autopilot, keeping the masses sedated, ensuring that no one ever steps too far out of line. And yet, those who break free always share the same experience. It's why the same religious institutions that once persecuted spiritual rebels now claim to follow their teachings. Because awakened individuals are always ahead of their time, always standing outside the system, always speaking truths that the world isn't ready for, until it is. But the most painful part, the realization that some people will never be ready. That no matter how much evidence, no matter how much wisdom you try to share, there will always be those who refuse to see. And that's where so many struggle. Because the instinct is to wake them up, to shake them out of their slumber, to make them see what you see. But here's the secret. You can't force someone to awaken. They have to choose it. Some will. Most won't. And the question you have to ask yourself is, what will you do with that? Because those who understand this, those who know how to navigate the isolation, the resistance, The misunderstanding, they don't just survive this journey. They transcend it. And that's where the real power lies. We're getting there. Most people think power comes from control, controlling others, controlling outcomes, controlling how the world perceives them. But the ones who truly wake up.
A quick message. This space has become something truly special for many of us. A community of people on a shared journey of spiritual growth, healing, and awakening. Your comments and stories inspire me every day, and it's clear there's so much more we can create together, especially since this path can feel lonely at times. That's why we've created a spiritual space on Patreon, a sanctuary for deeper connection, exclusive content, and meaningful conversations with others from this channel who share your journey. Together, we can build something uplifting, authentic, and spiritually powerful. If this resonates with you and you'd like to be part of something bigger, whatever you're going through, you'll find the link in the description or pinned in the comments. Your membership not only helps support the channel, but also helps grow this beautiful community. Let's create something amazing together.
The people who fear change, who cling to illusions, who reject what doesn't fit into their pre-programmed version of reality. You are not here to convince them. You are not here to beg for understanding. You are here to embody truth, whether they accept it or not. The moment you stop seeking validation, the moment you stop trying to explain yourself to people who have already decided not to hear you, that's when you shift. That's when you step into a different kind of existence. Because here's the real test of awakening. Can you handle being the outcast? Can you be the one who walks alone, who is doubted, ridiculed, even abandoned, and still stand firm in what you know? History proves one thing. Those who see beyond the surface, those who refuse to be controlled, are always cast as the villains first, before they're recognized as the visionaries. Look at the past. This is where you are now. Ahead of the curve. A threat to the system. A mirror reflecting back to people the illusions they aren't ready to face. And that's why you're misunderstood. Not because you're lost. Not because you're broken. But because you are walking a path most people don't even know exists. And those who do know, they recognize you. They've walked this road too. And they understand what's coming next. Because the misunderstood don't stay misunderstood forever. The ones who see deeper truths, the ones who refuse to conform, the ones who are willing to walk through the fire of isolation, they are the ones who change the world. And that moment, the moment when society finally sees what you've seen all along, it's coming. The question is, will you still be standing when it does? The world doesn't reward those who wake up, at least, not at first. It resists them. It pushes them to the edges, forces them to question their own sanity, tries to break them down until they either surrender or disappear. That's the way it's always been. Freedom from the need to be accepted. Freedom from the pressure to fit into a mold you were never meant to fit into. Freedom to be without compromise. This is what separates those who crumble from those who transcend. The awakened ones who survive the fire of rejection don't just survive, they become something greater. They find others who see like they do. They create their own reality instead of trying to fit into someone else's. They stop looking for permission and start living as they were meant to. And here's the paradox. The moment you embrace being misunderstood, the moment you stop explaining yourself, stop seeking approval, stop apologizing for what you know, that's when you become untouchable. That's when you shift from the outcast to the leader, from the anomaly to the force that can no longer be ignored. This is why the awakened have always been feared. So if you're struggling, if you're feeling lost, if you're wondering why the more you see, the more alone you feel, understand this: you are not alone. You are simply ahead of your time. And while the world may not recognize you now, one day it will. One day, the truths that seem radical, unsettling, even dangerous today, will be the foundation of the next era. And the ones who held firm, the ones who refused to go back to sleep, those will be the ones who shaped it. The question is, will you be one of them? The choice is yours. It always has been. You can spend your energy trying to fit back in, trying to soften what you know, trying to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You can dim your light, pretend you don't see what you see, try to live a life that no longer fits. But deep down, you already know where that road leads. You can stop explaining yourself to people who were never meant to understand. You can walk forward, fully awake, knowing that not everyone will follow, but the right ones will. Because the truth is, you are not alone. The system wants you to believe that you are, because an awakened person who thinks they are isolated is easier to break. But if you listen closely, if you pay attention, you'll see the others. The ones who have walked this path before you. The ones who aren't waiting for permission to be who they are. Find them. Connect with them. Build with them. Because this world does not change from the center. It changes from the edges. From the outcasts. The misfits. The ones who see differently and refuse to look away. You are not here to be understood by those who are still asleep. The illusion cracks. The tide turns. That moment is coming. The only question left is, will you have the courage to stand in your truth until it does? The ones who change the world aren't the ones who beg to be understood. They are the ones who stand firm even when they aren't. Think about every great thinker, every spiritual teacher, every revolutionary who saw beyond their time. They weren't accepted at first. They weren't celebrated. They were mocked, feared, ridiculed. Some were exiled. Some were silenced. Some were even killed. And yet, what happened? Their words, their ideas, their truth survived. It spread. It took root in the minds of those who were ready. And eventually, it became undeniable. This is the pattern. This is how change works. It doesn't come from mass approval. It doesn't come from being liked. It comes from standing alone when necessary, from holding on to what you know even when the world tells you you're wrong. So the real question isn't why you are misunderstood. Because the truth is, the spiritually awakened aren't here to be comfortable. They aren't here to fit in. They aren't here to make sense to those who refuse to see. They are here to shake things up, to disrupt, to plant seeds of thought that may not bloom for years, even lifetimes. You don't need validation from those who cannot yet see. You just need the courage to keep walking. Because one day, they will look back and realize, you were never the crazy one. You were just awake first. And when that day comes, when the world finally catches up, when the truth you've known all along is no longer dismissed but embraced, you will see the full picture. Not everyone was meant to wake up at the same time. Some people need more cycles, more lessons, more lifetimes. Some will never wake up at all, but that was never your concern. It was about finding strength in your solitude, peace in your knowing, power in your presence. And that's why spiritually awakened people are the most misunderstood. Because they have stopped seeking what others seek. They have broken free from the game that most people don't even realize they're playing. And when you refuse to play, when you walk away from the illusions, when you no longer react the way the world expects you to, that's when you become dangerous. Not in the way they tell you, not in the way they fear, but dangerous because you are free. And nothing terrifies the system more than someone who cannot be controlled. That is the final truth. The one they don't want you to realize. The one that will set you apart until the end of time. But if you've made it this far, if you felt every word of this in your bones, if you already know, then you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to rise.